Hello, welcome back. Episode 5 of this series that we're doing, just answering your Q&As as well. So just had some questions come in about professional baseball, and we thought who better to ask than Luke Hughes. So Luke Hughes, obviously Australian royalty in the baseball community, made it the whole way to the big leagues, was famous, hit a home run off his first at bat in the big leagues, was the 28th Australian to make it to the big leagues. We've only had 38. Which is incredible achievement. So Luke, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Benny. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no worries, mate. So you signed with the Minnesota Twins back in the early 2000s. How did that come about?
Yeah, long process, mate. Obviously something that, I set out at a young age, kind of wanted to sign a professional contract. I played footy, played baseball growing up, and it kind of got to that stage where I had to make that decision on which pathway I wanted to pursue. And it was a tough one, probably, the hardest decision that I had to make, growing up. And to be honest with you, I chose footy originally and wanted to go down that path, won a grand final down at East Perth Colts, and thought it was pretty good and wanted to kind of transition, keep playing footy, and had the off season come about. And thankfully, Major League Baseball started a program up on the Gold Coast, and which was fantastic. And a lot of people obviously have heard about it over the years, and been able to go up there as a 16-year-old kid with, I think we had about 70 or 80 guys coming to camp, stay at the Radisson up there, and be able to walk to the field and do all that. It sounded pretty good at that stage. So I changed my mind, went to baseball, and that was the last game of footy I ever played. Never played again, and started to try to really kind of hone into my skills and being able to train every day around those guys, have the coaches that came over from the States really kind of push my development. Was really where my baseball career started to take off. And essentially from there, it was a couple of years later, fortunate enough to sign with the Twins, and Howie Norsetter saw enough in me to be able to give a little angry little baseball player an opportunity to go play in the States.
Yeah. Oh, the great man, Howie. That's great. So you obviously left Australia, went over to America. Was it the first time that you'd been to the States?
It was. Traveled a little bit, and I think that academy kind of set a lot of the guys that signed professionally up because they got used to being away from, mum and dad and family and friends. School was, obviously we did school up there as well, but it kind of gave us the first insight of being away from the comfort zone. So, went away with a couple of the junior national teams, but that wasn't the same. So flying into America for the first time, I was very fortunate to have a group of Australians at Minnesota in spring training. And I think at the first year we had about 14 or 15 guys. So it was an easy transition for me because we had so many good friends that were already over there to be able to help through that process. They'd been through it before. So I had two guys I flew over there with, Reese Weldon and Stephen Tope, and they'd already been to the States. So, they basically, helped me out with, what it was going to be like, and kind of gave me that first idea of what professional baseball was going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. I guess it definitely makes it easy having a few friendly faces and a lot of people in the organisation, as well. So how was it, I guess, adjusting to professional baseball? I guess you're over there, you're playing with the top 1 or 2 or 3% of baseball players in the whole world. You've got players there from all different backgrounds, different languages, all there, competing and wanting to make it to the top of baseball in Major League Baseball. But how I guess challenging was it with the culture, the different background of the different players and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'll kind of talk about the first day I walked into spring training, and you start to realize the size of professional baseball and an organization. In one clubhouse, we had 200 guys, ranging from rookie ball all the way up to AAA. And the way the clubhouse was set up, it was, obviously rookie ballers, then advanced rookie, low A, high A, and then on the other side of the room was AAA and AA. And when I walked in there and you start to see how many people are involved in an organization, it was daunting. And, I was at the first stage, and it felt like it was so far away to get on that other side of the clubhouse where you were in AAA and one step away from playing in the big leagues and, realizing your dreams. So, yeah, it kind of smacked me in the face a little bit as, an 18-year-old kid going over there. And everyone kind of understands that through rookie ball, there's a lot of Latin American players, lots of twins, and Howie did a great job of scouting throughout the world and had some Dutch guys there, some German guys there. So, walks of all life, basically. So, it was interesting to kind of get used to the Latin culture, to understand those players, the language barrier that you have within that clubhouse. And I guess for us as Australians, we stuck together throughout those times through spring training, and you just get to understand why the Latin guys do the same thing. They can't speak English, they go to school every day. So it's quite interesting to kind of see. But I always remember my first batting practice I took in spring training, and I hit with, they kind of split the guys up all the way through. It wasn't just, the rookie ball guys hit. So it's just early in spring training, and hit with a couple of the AAA boys. One guy, his name was Garrett Jones, went on to play in the big leagues, went to Japan and played over there. And he was a very, very big guy, and he was hitting balls onto the other field, and I was barely getting one out of the infield. And I kind of was like, "What am I doing here? I shouldn't be here." So it was quite interesting to see that, and to kind of see how far away, reaching, even just AAA, it seemed like it was never going to happen.
Yeah, I'll just jump ahead to another question, I guess, just leaping off that. Obviously, you're very fortunate you did make it the whole way as well, but baseball is tough, very challenging, sport, as we all know. I'm sure you had some moments, whether homesick or also, in a slump and all the rest of it, that you may have been, lying in your bed at night time going, gee, should I go and play football, or have I made the right decision?
Mate, I thought about that for 7 years straight. Every day I thought about that. It's such a long, slow process, grind through the minor leagues. So many players, good friends come and go. You deal with those emotions, and your best mate gets a tap on the shoulder, gets released, and you're kind of like, wow, it's just like that. That's as easy as your dream can be ended. So, along the way, every year I came home from a season, I kind of thought it was my last. I had a couple of good years through the early days in the States, but no one really prepares you for the amount of time that you're away or missing family. You miss events, you miss 18th, 21st, weddings, like the time that, growing up, all your friends are going out, having a good time, drinking. And, the thing for me was, I was dedicated to the decision I made, which was to play baseball. But along the way, there's thoughts crept into the brain all the time about, if I played footy, would I already be playing in the AFL? Who knows? Never know. And I couldn't get that out of my head. And, I second guessed myself. We came home and decided one year, I think it was after my high A season, that was it. I was like, I'm done. I had a terrible year. Struggled through it. My parents came over to watch me. Funnily enough, you talk about, not getting hit for a while, and I think I went 0 for 35 while they were in town. And you're sitting there every day, and you kind of think, shit, I forgot how to hit. I can't remember how to hit. And you're trying different things, and you're out there every day in the cage. It's 45 degrees in Florida. You're sweating as soon as you step out, and you're trying to work out how to hit again. You feel like a little kid. So, those times were tough, and mentally challenging. But I feel, that kind of made me the person I am. I am a competitor, and I knew I'd get through it. So, coming home, taking a break, talking to my family, told my dad I wanted to quit. He basically said, take a couple of weeks off, mate. We'll have this conversation again. And I'm happy he did that. So, went away, put the bat down for the first time for a long time, and came back a few weeks later, and, I was ready to go again, and just kind of dedicated myself to be able to work through the slumps that I was in that year. Had a good mate, Ben Reisinger, and I was fortunate enough to go away on the national team that year. And basically, I remember flying into Taiwan, and he kind of looked at me and he goes, mate, what are you doing? Like, why are you hitting like that? And he's like, you've forgotten how to hit. That's not who you are. And fortunate enough to have him and the likes of John Deeble basically kind of reset where I was at, physically, mentally within my game, within the sport, to be able to go back to spring training and kind of took the shackles off my shoulder and said, whatever happens in spring training happens in spring training. You know that there's an opportunity to get released, but I think you have to kind of really accept that. And the moment I accepted that, I kind of fortunate enough to kind of take off, had a really good spring training and found myself into AA, which I still to this day have no idea how I hit 230 in high A and then got to AA the next year. But I was fortunate enough to get out of Florida, and from there, things started falling into place.
Yeah, excellent. And what did a standard week look like for you in terms of baseball? Like during that
In
period?
Australia?
No,
In
no. So
Australia?
over there, sorry. So that was just one of the questions. Like, what is an average week of a minor league baseball player? What does it kind of look like?
You don't get any time off. It's every day, right? And I think, like we're so used to, in Australia, you play once a weekend, maybe twice, you train a couple of nights during the week, and everyone thinks that's okay. It's not. Over there, you go from spring training, you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning, heading to the field, getting prepped, eating some breakfast, going out for early swings in the cage, early ground balls on the field before it even starts. So you've already trained, at a good hour solid, had 100 plus swings in the cage, fielded 50 ground balls before you even go out for the day to actually start. So, normally we'd have a meeting around about 8:30 and the whole organization would come together, have a chat. And then from there, break off into your groups, into your fields where basically you train for the next 2.5 hours before, you kind of go into, you come back in for lunch and then go back out for the game. So that's just spring training. Spring training is one of the hardest things that a player can ever do. It's always hot. It's either Arizona or Florida. You train all day, you go home after your game, and everyone just basically lays down and falls asleep for a couple of hours, wakes up, has dinner, goes back to sleep, and rolls back out next day at 5 o'clock. And that's, for a full 5 weeks straight, you do that. You don't get days off in spring training. They might have changed it now, I'm not sure, but at that stage, and then you roll into the season where, once you get out of rookie ball, baseball becomes a little bit more enjoyable because you get to sleep in a little bit late and start playing night games. So, whole structure to your life changes. You end up, waking up later. I'd probably, get up at 10 o'clock, have some breakfast, roll to the field, and everyone thinks, oh, you just play the game. No, I'm at the field at 12:30, 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. You get there, hang out with the boys, have some lunch, play some cards, and then, get changed and go down into the cage and you try to keep working on your swing, refining it. So, I'll be in the cage by 2:30 every day, taking 100, 150, 200 swings, working through the drills, working through whatever the hitting coach wanted me to work on. At times not good, at times good. So, and then come back in and kind of get ready for batting practice after that. So, roll out 4:30, hit on the field, do all your pre-game stuff. And I think the good thing about baseball is once you get into the season, there isn't actually too much, or especially in the upper minors, day to day, bum plays, first and third plays, all that stuff. By that stage, you should be able to know how to do all that. So then you come back, eat some food before the game, get set, have a shower, reset, maybe take a couple more swings before you roll out, and the game starts at 7. You finish at 10, you kind of roll back in. If you're taking an OFA, you kind of take it out of your mind. It's hard to get that out of your mind because, all you think about through the minor leagues is progressing and trying to, it's tough being Australian and Australian culture where we're, grilling us to win, and I was fortunate enough to play with the Heat where we did that. And when you get into the minor leagues, it's not about necessarily winning. It's about, developing as an individual to get through to the major leagues. So, we'd finish up the game, think about, go home, hang out with the boys a little bit. And in the end, mate, I think I was going to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a really tough time switching off from the game and being able to kind of put things out of my mind. So, going to bed at 2:30 every night, waking up at 10:30. So it's just a completely different lifestyle. And that's something that I think most players struggle with post-game to be able to switch off.
Yeah, relax, get a downtime. What secrets do you have or tips do you have about moving up through the levels?
Got to be dedicated. I think, we say that, but the players that put in the time and the effort, that kind of go that extra mile, that, spend the time in the gym to get stronger, spend time reaching out to people to work through what they need to do to progress to get better. Now, not always, the information that you receive is great. There's some good coaches out there, and there's a lot more bad coaches out there that try to put the stamp on you to try to work through and help you through it. But I think you got to work through who those people are and who the guys you trust, and who are the coaches that you trust. So it's tough. You just got to be able to understand that you got to be in it for the long haul. It's not a short process; it's a long process. And talking to junior players now that go through the system and stuff like that, you see them at training. So, what else are you doing outside of this training? Are you seeking help? Are you going to, do extra swings? Are you going to the gym? How often are you going to the gym? What's your nutrition like? Are you sleeping well? I think now, these days, there's so much more information out there on the internet of people like yourself and, giving advice or talking to people and what their process of how they got there, it's out there. So I would say be a student of the game, learn, listen, and dedicate yourself to really setting that 5 to 10 year goal, because I think if you're starting at 16, 17, you're already probably a couple of years behind. So, getting in the gym early, understanding what strength and conditioning is all about, what nutrition is all about, and recovery. And the last thing I would probably say is the mental space is something within baseball players that I think years ago we didn't really touch base on, but understanding to learn how to fail is probably the biggest thing. And if you can't learn to fail, baseball's not for you. Go play another sport, because everyone says fail 7 out of 10 times you're a Hall of Famer. Failing 7 times out of 10 is tough to do, and it's tough to understand. It's tough to how the mind works. So being able to, once you learn that and understand it and be able to be okay with that, that's when I think a lot of people's careers take off. Because in juniors, hitting 400 or 500, that doesn't happen. Every grade you go up, the average comes down. And I think every parent out there thinks that little Johnny's going to hit 400 all the way through his baseball career. But, you start stepping out into tougher competition and start playing senior men's baseball, that's when I think they get smacked in the face a little bit, and they need to learn that you ain't going to hit 400 ever again in your whole entire life.
Yeah. What did you find the biggest jump between the levels of minor league baseball was?
It's a good question, because a lot of people ask me that. And I think, to be honest with you, there's 2 jumps. There's going from Australian baseball first year into the States. I think that's a big jump. There's a lot of emotions that are going on, internally, plus the baseball side of things. I was fortunate enough to play on the national team at a pretty young age. So I got to go away and play in front of some big crowds. I got to go away and be with professional guys as a national team program quite a bit. So I think that helped me out personally for those little jumps every year. But going from, I would say, double A to triple A is quite different, because double A is full of prospects. And when I was playing, triple A was all the veteran guys that were floating up and down to the big leagues. They've either been released and they've signed, in triple A. So they were a little bit more craftier. So, facing a lot of guys in triple A where it wasn't just velocity, they knew how to pitch, they knew how to get guys out. And so that jump took me a little bit of time to work through. But these days, the league is so young, they don't really sign too many veteran guys to play in AAA anymore. I think they push through the younger guys a lot quicker through the system to get them to the big leagues earlier. Now, that shift started kind of happening towards the end of when I was playing, like kind of 11, 12. I really noticed the fact that it was starting to get younger. Guys were struggling to sign as free agents in AAA, where a lot of guys were going out there and getting a ton of money just to sit in AAA all year and just play AAA. And there's guys that made a really good living out of doing that. But it's not like that anymore. So I think, that double A to AAA, where they start getting a little bit more refined and throw more strikes, being able to locate a little bit more with their off-speed stuff is probably a big jump.
And in 2010, you went to the big leagues for the first time. Was it expected, or how was that when you found out that you were going up?
I don't think it's ever expected, unless you're like a superstar like Travis Bazzana, and it's going to go through, I think, move quickly through the system. Fingers crossed, for him. And it's, I think, as an Australian going over there, there hasn't been many people fortunate enough to get to the big leagues and realise their dream. So I think as an Australian, you kind of got to be I'm a realist with it. And I thought that, working through, once I got out of A ball to double A, I was pretty content, to be honest with you. I was like, this, I'm happy. I kind of got out of there. Not a lot of guys get out of A ball into double A. And, I was fortunate enough to have a couple of good years in Double A, hit some home runs, and ended up sending me to Venezuela to play winter baseball, which I wanted to go to the Arizona Fall League where it was nice and sunny and beautiful. And they decided it was a better opportunity for me to go down to Venezuela. So once an organization kind of, does something like that, Mitchie Newborn went to the Fall League, and it was last year. And, that you're kind of getting somewhere in that prospect list, and they're starting to understand and think a little bit more of you than just a baseball player. So, for me, going down there, doing that, coming back and, having a really good month, in Double A where, all right, they jumped up to Triple A the following year, and first year into big league camp, got put on the roster. And I had a really good spring training because for us, obviously, we come into spring training playing games. We've already played in the ABL, already had 100, 150 at bats in the off season. So I'm ready to go, where a lot of these pitchers are just kind of getting ready in spring training. So I hit a few home runs, did well, knew I was never going to break camp with the team, but I knew I put a pretty good foot forward with that. And so you're always kind of waiting for that injury, and you kind of always hope that it's going to be your name. And, unfortunately for Tsuyoshi Nishioka, who was a Japanese guy that the Twins signed, Nick Swisher broke his leg and breaking up a double play. And I remember sitting there, I was kind of like, actually, sorry, that was the second year. Nick Punto was the one that got hurt the first year. Sorry, Nicky Punto was a good fella. So he got hurt, and I got called up, and I was only up for a week, and coming into a major league clubhouse is a little bit different to spring training clubhouse, and it was quite daunting. And it was a lot going on, a lot of emotions, a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages and all that stuff like that. So I was fortunate enough to settle in for a day or two before getting my opportunity to play in Detroit. And I think those 2 days of just sitting back and watching really helped me for the first, opportunity to come out and play in Detroit.
Yeah. And how was it, or how different is the lifestyle? Obviously, you're at the top of the pinnacle of the sport, the big leagues, you're on planes, you're not getting buses anymore. Like, what was that lifestyle, like? There's cameras, there's fans.
No, it's hard to explain because you go from bussing around in AAA and 10 or 12-hour buses through the night and trying to sleep in a little chair and all that stuff, and hating life, waking up with a sore back every day trying to play. And then all of a sudden, you're flying around in private jets, the buses, you land, there's buses waiting there. Hotel keys are already straight up to your room. Or caring about themselves to more about the team. They start to obviously wanting to win, in the big leagues. And that's something that the lifestyle is just different. It's just so much different. You finally have some money in your pocket after going through the minor leagues with no money, battling away. And all of a sudden, you're getting paid, a few grand a day to play the game you love and spend time with all these guys. And I was fortunate enough to play with Hall of Famers and MVPs and stuff like that. And the amount that I learnt from those guys, not only from my own, baseball career, but life stuff was pretty cool to do. So it's just different. You stay in 2-star hotels, and all of a sudden stay in 5-star hotels in New York, Boston, Chicago. Everywhere you go, people know who you are. Especially in Minnesota, it's such a small community of sport fans. They just love their sport. So, and especially when you're an Aussie, there's not many Aussies in Minnesota. So, yeah, it was just really it was a nice experience, funny experience, plenty of good stories. Some that I can't share, so I'll keep them quiet.
Yeah, a lot of good times, no doubt. Obviously, it's probably not something that's talked about that much, but being traded, being released, that's obviously part of the game. I was surprised that you're with, Minnesota the whole way through the minor leagues, right to the big leagues. That's not really a common story. So you also spent some time with Toronto and Oakland at the end of your careers. How did that come about?
Obviously, I was fortunate enough to spend my whole minor league career with the Twins, and so I was there for 10 years, or just going into my 10th year. And knowing one organization, how they do it, everything about it, knew all the organization, all the brass, all the people that take care of the team on and off the field, and had really close relationships with them. And basically, they saw me grow from an 18-year-old kid to a 27-year-old man, and you do get really close with them. And so when it was time, and we're in New York, and I knew there had to be a move made. I didn't think it was going to be me that was going to get designated, but unfortunately it was. And, it's kind of really confronting. You spend 10 years with an organization. I think I had about a minute and a half conversation with the, with Gardy and our GM at the time. And yeah, it was tough. It was a tough conversation. You kind of expect a little bit more, to be honest with you, when you're kind of there and you spent 10 years. But in the end, it's a business, and that's where the first time I learned baseball is a business. And I kind of started bouncing around a little bit. I got designated. I was fortunate enough to get picked up with Oakland. I was only there for a week, and I hadn't played or swung a bat for 8 days, 10 days. Coming in, and Phil Nevin was like, Bob Melvin, was like, good to play, and I was not going to say no. Of course, I was ready to play. So, I went there, played a couple of games, got designated again, ended up in AAA. Ended up in AA with them, back up to AAA, and then century released with them, and found myself without a job again. So this is all happening in the space of call it 2 months. I was on a plane on the way over to Indy Ball, trying to find a place to play, and fortunate enough that Toronto, called my agent and said, hey, do you want to come and play AAA in Las Vegas? And so I literally got off the plane, turned around, got on a plane, flew back across the country, met up with the boys in Albuquerque. And I think for me, those few months were really quite difficult mentally, not knowing where I sat within the game, what was going to happen. I think I played on 5 or 6 different teams that year. Forever making, trying to make some mates. And unfortunately with baseball, you play against a lot of these guys throughout the system. So, I did know a few guys, and the last 6 weeks when I was playing in Vegas, I just said, no, I'm just going to have a good time, enjoy my baseball, have a bit of fun off the field, and I relaxed a little bit and had a great last 6 weeks, and that was it. I didn't play professional baseball again. So, it was one of those things that was quite confronting when you with one team for 10 years, and then all of a sudden I was with 3 organizations that year and played on 6 different teams. And yeah, it was pretty tough, but look, it's baseball, and it's a professional sport, it's a business. And you just got to understand, if you're a young player going over there, it is a business. As much as they think they care about you, in the end you got to make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah, obviously hindsight's a great thing as well. I guess looking back at your career, is there anything or any advice that you have, or anything that you'd change, or any advice for anyone that's looking to go down the process?
Look, you just got to keep an open mind, because you got to forever continue to develop and learn and be a sponge and soak it all in. I think, going over there, you got to understand you don't know much about the game or the direction of where you're going to go. And so I was pretty open-minded with everything. I had a large network of people that I turned to throughout my time in the minor leagues and in the big leagues. So, setting that structure around yourself is very important. Having mum and dad, support you. They're always going to support you no matter what. But I think the good thing was me, I had the ability to have my friends away from baseball that I could call and just have a chat about footy, golf, what was going on. I had friends within the sport, baseball, older guys from my, local club at Morley Eagles Baseball Club, like Brad, Williamson, and, Brad Prizoff, and guys for me that kind of took me under their wing early at an early age. I'll call them, have a chat to them. I had the guys within Australian baseball that I could turn to. Glenn Williams, obviously a good friend of mine. Trent Olchin. There's a lot of guys that I turned to through within the baseball industry to talk to as well along those times. And then, I think a lot of people don't have that network of people around them to support them. They kind of go over there and they've got a couple of friends, but they don't reach out. Young guys, young players don't reach out enough to other people. My phone's always open. I always tell the guys, send me a message and I'll give you a call. If you ever need a chat, give me a call. And these are anybody that's within the system or anyone that's going through it, because I know how difficult it is. And we've got to make sure you spread it out, have your time to call your friends and talk about life and other stuff. Have your friends within the sport to be able to help you through those struggles, and the people that have gone through those struggles, and then have your other fans, like friends and family and stuff like that, that are always just going to fill you with positive thoughts and positive vibes. So I think broaden your mindset around who you have around you to support you.
Yeah. And just wanted to pick your brain as well. Obviously, when you went through the system and you spoke about it earlier, how the Twins had so many Australians there. Obviously, I know Howie's obviously a great scout and been pretty aggressive and given a lot of guys opportunities, which is amazing. But we don't have as many guys in professional baseball today as what we used to. What, yeah, why do you think that is?
I think, to be honest with you, there was this at the time when I kind of signed, a few years just before that and the years after that, you know, more Australians got signed because of the likes of Brad Thomas, Nakamura, Grant Belfour, like these guys' success throughout that little bit of era. That's to me, funny enough, Glenn Williams is just calling me right now. That's hilarious. Just mentioned his name 2 minutes ago and he's calling, unless he's listening.
Yeah.
It's something that I think the success of those guys really kind of show that in Australia there was a lot more players, and it's kind of untouched a little bit. Obviously, we had the likes of Neely and Lloydie and Shippy and stuff like that. They're really the kind of godfathers of Australian baseball and the jump to the States. But through my era, I think I was talking to someone the other day. I reckon we about had 85 to 100 guys in professional baseball at that stage, and it was pretty special to see that. Obviously, now with the teams cutting players and teams cutting teams, so less players playing professional baseball, it has made it a lot more difficult for opportunities. I think the scouting's so strong throughout the world. There's scouts everywhere. Talking to Deebs, he's going to Uganda, like the Dodgers, they're everywhere, right? So I think it's definitely tougher. Plus, Australian baseball are really pushing the college route at the moment. I understand that, it's probably an opportunity for guys to have that taste of what, American lifestyle is all about, get their feet wet and play some, college baseball. And, scouts just aren't signing Australians anymore. It's just, unless you're a pretty high time prospect, you're not getting a look in. I wasn't, I signed for not much money. I'll tell you, I signed for 35 grand. It was not much back in those days. And Howie just saw something in me that was just, I was a bit of a mongrel and scrappy baseball player, had a little bit of pop in the bat. And I think guys like myself these days don't get signed at all. Guys like myself would have to probably go off to college to kind of continue that pathway. So it's just a fact of life now in Australia that, you're probably going to have to go that pathway. But on the back end of that, not many guys are actually getting signed out of college, Australians. Like to hope over the next 5 years that changes. But to be honest with you, there's probably only count 5 guys that have been drafted in the last 15, 20 years. There's not a lot. So I think having the mindset, I'm going to go to college and sign, that's not the mindset. You're going to college to get some life experiences. You're going to play, hopefully become a better person. And if you get the opportunity to play, that's a bonus because you've got to do something pretty ridiculous to get noticed, especially in college with how many players are playing in college. And obviously Travis has done that and, he's going to go top 3 in the draft and it's special and he's doing a lot for Australian baseball by that. And I think he's really grasped that and understands that. So I really hope that, with his success will open, the eyes back up to some of these scouts and some of these other teams to hopefully sign some more Australians.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Just mindful of time. We've got about 6 minutes left. I'll just move it along. So you've got an amazing resume. Obviously, as I said, there's only 38 Australians that have ever made it to the big leagues. You're one of them. Obviously, you played a long time in the ABL after that as well. What are you up to these days?
Just moved to Melbourne, so back over in Melbourne, that's Perth, and so I'm over here now. I'm still involved with obviously the game, love the game. I finished up coaching my local club last 3 years in Perth, my leagues baseball club, which I went through my whole life with them. So I spent better part of 30 years with that club, and having the ability to coach them is fantastic. I still do this stuff with 1623, so we still run programs, camps, clinics, all that stuff like that. Which for me, it still connects me with the baseball community and still with the junior community. Just getting my feet wet over here in Melbourne. Definitely looking at a club to coach and get back out there and do some more stuff. Looking at doing a podcast with a mate at the moment, just to kind of talk about, Australian baseball, all the ins and outs, not only Australian baseball, I call it baseball in general. I think there's a lot to talk about and there's a lot to teach and learn and discuss. So going to look at, kind of doing that. So, I still run, some online hitting stuff as well. So I still really like the connection to baseball, and it's just inbred in me. I don't think I'll ever be able to step away from the game completely, as much as I step away from the game from playing. Last year was my last year playing at my local club. It was time to kind of wrap that up, mate. So yeah, just kind of getting settled in over here in Melbourne, and looking forward to joining in with the baseball fraternity over here.
Yeah, definitely a lot to offer. I guess, yeah, I think you'd be a great person to be involved, at any level of baseball as well. But hopefully that call from Glenn Williams might be potentially offering your sake or getting you involved in Australian baseball, which I'd absolutely love to see, mate. I think you've got absolutely so much to offer the game. You've been there, you've done it all through all the ranks of professional baseball as well. So yeah, it's great to hear that you're still connected, that you're still giving back, still teaching these guys, and downloading that massive resume as well. So any last thoughts, mate? There's just a couple of minutes, or anything else, or any advice, or anything else you'd like to share?
I think just with the young fellas, and girls too, right? When kind of talking to both of them, have your plan, set it out. I talk to a lot of parents around setting out your plan at an early age, 14, 15, understanding what college baseball is all about. I know you do a great job discussing that and getting as much information out to the people as possible. But for me, really write it down, set your goals. Set your goals up, short-term goals, long-term goals. I kind of look at it, from six to like 3 years, as you're going through 6 months to 3 years, like through the goal setting from 15 to 18, to make sure that when it comes around to the time that you're 18, you're ready to go to the States and you've prepared everywhere from, physically, mentally, on the field, off the field. Everything's kind of in a line to give yourself the best opportunity to have success when you go over there. So don't think at 17 you can just turn around and say you want to play college baseball. It becomes a lot more difficult, especially for mum and dad and the bank of mum and dad. So I'd say, look, hard work just pays off. The dedication to the sport and the craft it pays off. Now, you might not get to college, but you'll be better club baseball and you'll be a better person for your club. Some people max out at club baseball and that's fine. That's 100% fine. Some people max out at college baseball, that's fine. Some people get to play in the States and play professional, and some people get to play for the country for a long time. It's where your pathway takes you and how much work you put in, will essentially get to where you want to get to. So just keep working hard. That's all I say. Keep working hard. Don't listen to the haters. It's, don't get caught up with all the drama that comes with it. I probably did for a long time. And, once you release that and just enjoy it and have a good time with your mates, a lot of success comes your way.
Yeah. Luke Hughes, really appreciate it. I really enjoyed that and got a lot out of it myself. I'm sure everyone else did. Thanks for coming and answering the questions for our fan base as well. So appreciate it. Stay warm there in Melbourne and look forward to seeing you around the baseball field again.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Look forward to catching up. See you, mate.